How many books are you going to read this year? That's a question that many people have asked me. And the reality is I don't have any such goal. Now, I am reading lots of books, and I want to talk to you about that today. But I first want to say welcome to my second vlog update for the year 2022. There may be more vlog videos coming here to this YouTube channel, we'll see. But this is vlog update number 315. The only way that I'm doing this one today is that, you know what? I pulled out my Rode Lav Plus microphone that I bought many years ago. I'm recording this here on my iPhone. I think I still have the iPhone 11 Pro Max. And I'm doing completely unedited. So there is no intro video, no editing whatsoever. This is live on the fly, which is the only reason that I'm going to be able to just publish this for you today. So this topic of reading books, I've gotten to the place where the old days of reading was a struggle. So for me, I had this belief or this mindset that said that if I start a book, number one, I should probably finish it. And if I'm in the middle of reading a book, anywhere in the process of reading the book, I probably shouldn't be picking up another book. Unless maybe I would allow myself, if I'm reading a nonfiction book, I might actually pick up a fiction book or a fantasy novel or something of that nature that's kind of like a little bit more of just for recreation purpose of just, you know, entering into another world and all that stuff. But certainly if I'm reading a nonfiction book that is for my personal and or professional development, I'm going to power through this book. And I remember there was a book by Dwork called Mindset. And this is just indicative of what's happened a number of times. And nothing against that book. I'm sure it's a great book, and I'm sure I've probably missed some very important key elements that are in that book. But when I got into the book called Mindset by Dwork, I realized it was all about knowing the difference between a fixed mindset and a growth mindset. A fixed mindset being somebody who believes that, well, pretty much where they are today, how they think today, what they're experiencing today, that's pretty much how things are going to be. Not a whole lot of new skill development going to happen, blah, 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 blah. A growth mindset person says, listen, you're never too old to start learning a new skill, a new technique, a new this. You know, if I've gone through my entire life with people saying, Cliff, you can't sing, you couldn't hold a tune in a bucket, all of this other stuff. There's not a growth mindset would say, hey, I could hire myself a singing coach, and I believe there is possibility that I could learn to sing on key, and I could learn to tune my ears and all this other stuff. But a fixed mindset person says, nope, I wasn't born with that. And so, okay, in that book, the introduction to that book set up the premise of the book. The first chapter demonstrated that. The second chapter demonstrated that. The third chapter. And all of a sudden, I just found myself getting bored. It's like, okay, every chapter is saying exactly the same thing. Chapter after chapter after chapter. And about after 4 or 5 chapters of that, I got bored. And I didn't want to read anymore because I was bored. I felt like I got a lot of value. I'm glad I bought the book, but I was bored. And so I didn't want to continue on. As a result of that, along with the mindset that I shouldn't be reading other books before I finish this one, otherwise, you know, that it's just like, who does that, right? Well, me today. But anyway, the reality is that I never wanted to finish that book, and so I got stalled, and I would go a long period of time without reading anything else in the nonfiction, personal growth, personal development realm. Finally, I decided, you know what, I'm not going to read the rest of this book, and I just archived it and moved on to the next book. Things changed, and that was how I approached reading for many years of my adult life. And things changed for me. I went from hating to read to really enjoying reading. My life has been transformed drastically over the last 5 or so years since I've had a massive shift in my mindset about what it means to read books, to consume books. And for me today, reading books is like this. I'm currently in the process of reading like somewhere between the beginning of the book and the end of the book of about 40 or 50 different books. And that is no exaggeration. I'm going to share with you, I've got this book right here pulled up. on my Kindle, The Map of Consciousness Explained. I may talk about that in just a second. But if I go to my library here, and I'll click on my library, you'll see that I have, there we go. I have collections on here, all right? The first one is spiritual/faith, coaching/personal development, entertainment, and this is my collection of books to read. These are the books that I've completed that I want to read again, archived, already read, and of course those are the ones that are just downloaded. So this is filtered just to what's on my Kindle. If I actually turn the filter off, there's a lot of books that have been archived. But anyway, not to impress you, it's not important. But I want you to see here, these are books that I'm currently in the process. So if I go to spiritual/faith, you can see right here, I am 9% of the way through this book that I just started. Be Here Now by Ram Dass, that is 12%. I've downloaded the sample of Power of Awareness. I haven't started it. For some reason, it says I'm at 0% of Autobiography of a Yogi, but I'm actually on my second or third time through this book, and I know that I'm further than that. Inner Engineering by Sadhguru, I'm 37% of the way through. And if I go through here, you can see I'm 17% of the way through Becoming Supernatural, 59% of the way through this book from Muji, 37% of the way through this commentary on the teachings of Jesus. I mean, I am in the process of reading lots of books, and that's just in the spiritual faith. I've got 23 books that I'm in the process of reading in that category. And then coaching. Think and Grow Rich, I'm currently 56% of the way through. I think this is the fourth time reading that book that I'm going through it. The Coaching Habit, I'm currently 18% of the way through, my second time reading this. 50% of the way through the autobiography from Carl Gustav Jung. And Super Coach, I'm 35% of the way through reading this book the third time. And The Prosperous Coach, I'm currently 26% of the way through reading that like the fifth or sixth time. And I've got all of these other books that I'm currently in the process of reading. 31% of the way through The Magic of Believing. 6% of the way through reading Psycho-Cybernetics for the third time. So I am not finished with a lot of books. Matter of fact, in any given month, I may only finish 2 books, if that, and it doesn't matter to me. In fact, when we go to this book right here, this is called The Map of Consciousness Explained by Dr. David R. Hawkins. All right, I have started this book just a few days ago, and I've had it in my hands twice to read. And so far, I have not made it to chapter 1. I'm not even in chapter 1. There's this foreword, and there's an introduction, and one section is about his wife talking about her husband, Dr. Hawkins, who has passed away, I gather as a result of reading this introduction from his wife. But there were things that she said, highlights that I made, and I would stop and ponder what was just being said. Sometimes I'll open up my notes app and I'll jot down some notes. I'll journal about something. I will sit and meditate on what I've just read. And so what could be read easily by me in 15 minutes, I may have just taken an hour and a half to read. And I allow myself to just go in and digest. So for example, the introduction is written by somebody who I guess was a friend of Dr. Hawkins. I had not yet figured out who's writing this introduction because I haven't got to the end of the introduction. This introduction's not that long. I think it would probably take me about 30 minutes to read the entire thing if I read it straight through. But I'm probably only, what would typically be about 15 minutes worth of reading this book, but I've highlighted nearly everything. I've then opened it up on my Kindle app on my iPad and copied and pasted into my notes, where I'm taking notes on kinesiology and muscle testing and how you can communicate with the subconscious mind, which then led me to go and open up YouTube and do some research and search for people who are demonstrating these practices. And then that led me down a whole nother rabbit trail. And I'm bringing in my notes, currently using the Notion app. It doesn't matter to me what I use. I used to use Evernote, but I'm using the Notion app today. And so I'm putting, I have an entire note on kinesiology and muscle testing. And I have lots of relevant information explaining what that is, how Dr. Hawkins came across it, other people have taught it, what it does, and all this other stuff. Then I have embedded in my notes YouTube videos that actually demonstrate all of this. By the way, Leo wants to come up and say hello since this is an unedited video. Leo, say hi to everybody. Say hi, they're right there, right there. He says, I don't see anybody. All right, go lay down, buddy. Anyway, that's what you're gonna get with these unedited vlogs. If my dog's gonna come up and interrupt me, that's fine. Anyway, so I have a couple different YouTube videos. I have notes about those YouTube videos, and now the introduction just has one little glimpse about kinesiology, one little glimpse into this thing. But I'm like, I've heard of this before. I have a client who introduced this topic to me. I read another book recently called the Psyche Experiment or something like that. And I'm really starting to recognize, it's like, hey, this keeps coming up for me. I think I'm going to look into this a lot deeper than I gave it my mental cycles before. And it's like, okay, so this is what I did today. Now, the introduction that I'm reading about Dr. Hawkins has moved on from kinesiology and muscle testing. But what I could have read in 15 minutes, I spent about 2 hours on today taking notes. And I still have 30 more minutes of this introduction to read, and I'm finished reading for the day. I've literally devoted about 2.5, 3 hours total to reading and note-taking and personal growth and personal development. And I've read about 15 minutes worth of actual reading time of the book. And it's this method of reading that's caused me to fall in love with reading. If I never pick this book up again and read another thing out of it, if my life is positive and my personal and professional development is positively influenced or impacted by the fact that I took these notes on kinesiology and muscle testing and I practice it and test it out and see if it's something worth using in the work that I do, then that's valuable enough, even if I never actually start reading chapter 1. Now, I'm pretty convinced at this point that I'm going to finish this entire book, but that's how I approach books. There are so many books that I'll start and I'll never finish, and that's not a big deal for me. There are so many books that I'll start, and it may take me 2.5, 3 years to get through that book. No big deal. How many books have I finished this past week? This past month, this past year? It's not important. I finish enough books. I study about 3 to 5 hours a day on average. And I don't say that as braggadocious or anything like that. It's just that because I love what I do, I love learning, I love growing, I study a lot. And a lot of that studying includes reading. But when it comes down to it, maybe the actual technique of reading words, or even if it's audible and audio, listening to words, it might only be 20% of what I call reading/studying. Anyway, so how many books am I going to read in 2022? About 60 or so. How many will I complete in 2022? I could care less. It doesn't matter to me if I complete a single one. The important thing is when I sit down and I devote some time, a few hours to reading, studying, learning, growing, did I let it sink in? Did I let it permeate my inner thoughts? Did I let it root out some limiting beliefs that I've had previously? Did I allow it to transform my perception and the way that I look at this world? And the answer to that question is always yes. And how often will that happen? Well, I'm committed to making it happen every single day. Anyway, that's my vlog update for today. Vlog episode number 315 and completely unedited. You got to see Leo, my super pup, which I don't think I've ever done a vlog episode with Leo in it. And now you've gotten to see Leo today. And this is unedited, unscripted, and it is what it is. Until next time, I encourage you to take everything you do to the next level. Bye-bye.